Hi, Gummies. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for tuning in into another episode of Bumping My Gums. I'm excited and happy to introduce my guest, Pastor Shanda Berry, and she is going to share her story with us today. Can you introduce yourself to my gummies?
Hello, Gummies. How are you? I am Pastor Shanda Berry, and it's definitely a pleasure to be here with you all today and to speak to you. And I'm just honored.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you. Um,
Yes, it was Pastor's
what?
appreciation that you were leading a song in praise and worship, and you shared your testimony. And when I was listening to it, I was thinking, oh, I have to have her on because number one, it's powerful testimony, and number two, it just speaks about how we have to be advocates, medical advocates for ourselves, and just not never give up, and be faithful to the Lord, and then also be an advocate for ourselves and be faithful to our own health and not allow
Absolutely.
anyone to tell you how you feel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey, about how you first started feeling symptoms? What were the symptoms that you first started noticing?
Okay. So early in 2007, I began to feel a lump in my breast, and I did my due diligence. I went to the breast surgeon and the OB, and everybody was telling me that there's nothing wrong. Yeah, they felt a little something in my breast, but there was nothing wrong. But the Holy Spirit just really kept impressing upon me that there was indeed something wrong. So I kept following up, and the doctors just basically kept dismissing me. There was nothing wrong. So I finally went back, and the last time I had went back, I ended up seeing the owner of the practice because the doctor that I had previously had been seeing, his mother had got a cancer diagnosis, so he was no longer there. So ended up seeing the owner of the practice, an older Indian doctor, and he's just like, "Well, I don't care what it is. We're going to look at it further." And so he ordered me to have an ultrasound of my breast.
Mhm.
And we went and did the ultrasound, and they said they saw four masses in my left breast,
Wow.
but that there was no need for concern because they were basically solid. And if it was cancerous, there would have been like some fluid or something there. So he basically would tell me that he doesn't see anything, but go to the surgeon. So I went to the surgeon, and the surgeon, who was also an older Indian gentleman, he's like, "Listen, I don't care what it is. If it's hurting you, I'm going to take it out." And let me backtrack a little bit because I kind of like jumped head, first into the story.
Mhm.
The symptoms I was having, it's like when you're pregnant and after you have a baby and your breast leak the colostrum. I was leaking clear fluid from my left breast,
Wow.
and I actually thought I was pregnant. I had some difficulties during both of my pregnancies, and actually during my second pregnancy, after I was told I couldn't have any more children, I got pregnant, and I had been taking the pregnancy test, and they all kept coming back negative. And so the last pregnancy test I took that came up positive, then when I went to the OB to get it checked out, I have an ultrasound, I was almost 4 months along. So I was pregnant the whole time. And so they had told me at that point that if I got pregnant again, there was no way I could take a home pregnancy test, that I had to take a blood test. But long story short, I was having the leaking breast. That was the only symptom I had of my pregnancy.
Right.
So fast forward all these years later, and my breast is leaking again, and I'm just like, wait, I think I'm pregnant again.
Mhm.
And so that's what prompted me to keep going back to the doctors, because first we did a pregnancy test, and when that wasn't it, we looked further, and that's when we found the lump. That's when they saw the lumps on the ultrasound that I had already found through my self breast exam that I had done at home every month anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, so so like I said, I saw the breast surgeon, and he's just like, "I don't care what it is. If it's hurting, I'm going to take it out," because I was complaining that it was hurting, it was leaking, it was very tender to the touch, it was almost feverish. He decided that he was going to take it out no matter what it was.
Wow.
So he scheduled me for the very next week
Hmm.
in September, end of September, in the surgery center that was right next door to his practice. So we went in. He said, I'm going to take about 5 millimeters, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when they're taking anything from anywhere, I don't care how big it is, it's a lot.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
he took out the 5 millimeters, the lumpectomy in my left breast, and um, the very next week, he said that he would give me the results from the biopsy of the tissue. The next week, the results weren't there. They said I had to wait another week.
Oh my
So I'm
gosh.
like, okay. So then the next week, which is now 2 weeks out, and I remember it was the 1st of October, October 1st, because I thought it was very ironic.
Hmm.
Um, his nurse practitioner called me at 7 a.m. and said the doctor wants to see you in his office immediately. You need to come immediately. So I knew right then and there, I knew that there was something not right.
Hmm.
So I had gone into his office, and he came in and he looked frantic. He was just, yeah, he looked absolutely, he looked frantic. And so he came in and he had my chart and he's looking and he says, okay, there's no easy way to tell you this. You have breast cancer, and we need to do another surgery because we tested the margins around the tissue we took out and there was cancer present. See, if they had gotten the whole lump and all the cancer, there would not have been a need to do another surgery. But
Right.
he's like, there was cancer in your margins. We need to do another surgery immediately. So he wanted to schedule me like for the next day, and I'm like, sir, you got to give me a minute. Like, I need to tell my husband. I got to tell my family. I got to tell somebody. You can't just,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
But he was scared. That's the thing that resonated in my mind is how scared the doctor was. Now, when you're going to the doctor, you think they have all the answers. They're the medical professional. They've been to school for this
Right.
stuff. But when he was scared, that's when I got scared, you
Wow.
know. And so I said, let me just schedule it, the second lumpectomy, but I need to get a second opinion. Give me like 2 weeks. So I had gone home and I remember going in. I didn't even wake up my husband when it was time for me to go to the doctor. So he had no clue. I came home and he was up and, I told him basically I need to talk to you. And then I told him that I had cancer and just the look on his face was as if it was a death sentence. He was scared
Right.
but he was very supportive at the same time. Immediately, he's just like, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. And
So,
so that began the
okay,
journey.
I don't mean to interrupt, but so at this point when you were diagnosed, you were how old?
I was 26,
So you were 26, you were married. How long had you been married?
5 years.
5 years at that point. Okay. And then you had one child at this point?
I had two biological children and one adopted child.
Wow. So at this time, when this doctor was telling you this news, 27, married 5 years, and three children that you're
3 children.
trying to absorb this information and deal with.
Absolutely. It,
Wow.
it, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah. So how long was it from your first appointment to when you were actually finally diagnosed? What was the time
Um,
frame?
Again, they kind of found it backwards because they did the lumpectomy first in September, and I didn't get diagnosed until October 1st,
Okay.
in his office. And then 2 weeks later, I had a second lumpectomy, um, and then my margins came up dirty again. So I needed another surgery, and I needed radical chemotherapy.
Wow. So what was your did during this time did you seek like a psychiatrist? Did you seek counseling at that time or you just went before the Lord? How did you deal with it? Because I know mentally it was a strain as well, even when those 2 weeks of waiting for the diagnosis and during those times going back and forth to the doctor, trying to communicate with them like something is wrong and they're not listening.
My husband was a source of strength that I have never seen in
Wow.
all my life until then. He was my counselor, my best friend, my everything. We went to the doctors. We told my mother. and Rosanna Brown Simmons. And she, from the day I told her, she was just a research maniac. I'm gonna tell you, if there was research out there, she found it. She found actually all of the research for it, because I couldn't look. I couldn't look.
Right.
I couldn't see it. My husband kept me basically secluded, and to keep me positive,
Yeah.
and to keep my mind um, focused and just as positive as he could, because he didn't want me cracking at the seams. So he tried to keep negativity away from me as much as he could.
Right.
And it's important when you get a diagnosis to surround yourself with people who can fight for you when you can't fight for yourself. Because I'll tell you one thing that was disheartening, and I hope your viewers really hear this, if they come across this in their life.
Mm-hmm.
When we told my family, it was, it was heartbreaking. Some Their faith just crumbled. It was like I told them I was going to die.
Wow.
Their faith just crumbled. My mother and my father, they're just like, oh no, we're fighting. My other family members, they were paralyzed with fear. But then yet others, it's like the minute I told them about my diagnosis, then they decided to call me and tell me everybody else who had died of cancer. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. If somebody's in a fight for their life, you don't call them and tell them about somebody else who didn't make it.
Right.
It weighs very, very heavily on you.
Yeah.
So I was not strong in and of myself. It definitely, my faith was put to the test, and I had to get scriptures. People had given me scriptures. People had made CDs for me of scriptures and prayers, and just repeating them, reciting them, playing them when I was asleep. One prayer warrior from my church, I told my husband to play the CD even while I was asleep.
Wow.
To fight for me in my sleep. And that was great, because in the beginning, I think it was just such a whirlwind of emotions, feelings. I'm trying to be strong for everybody else.
Right.
And that was difficult for me, because I was used to being the strong one. Now there's something wrong with me, and I don't know how to fight for me. So the majority of the time, I try to pretend that I wasn't sick. I try to pretend that I didn't have this diagnosis, and pretend that I was okay, in an effort to be strong for everybody else. And in the midnight hour,
Right.
is when it really hit me, when everybody had gone home to their families and to their children. And it was just my husband and myself. My kids were 3, 4, and 6 at the time.
Wow.
So they were still too small to really understand. But my husband was there, and he was, like I said, he was a great source of strength for me, like I have never seen in all my life. Yeah.
With that, I know a lot of times that's what we do. Like you said, we want to be strong for everyone else, even though you are the one that is going through. You are the one who is trying to process this and basically fight for your life. How did that whole process change how you, I guess, how did that process change how you handled those type of situations? Did that confirm that's how you needed to deal with it, by putting on that strong face? Or through this process, did you learn, okay, it's okay for me to show my emotions. It's okay for me to kind of feel the feels.
I never felt that it was okay to show my emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like I had to be strong for everybody else. That's just a part of my makeup and a part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I'm not feeling my best, I'm pushing, pushing, pushing. And I realized at that time that my family needed me to be strong. They needed me to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very hard for me to be the weak one. It was, I just couldn't. I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Even being sick, even after I started chemotherapy, I would come home from chemotherapy and I'm vomiting and I'm weak and lethargic and can't get out of bed. But I'm on the phone encouraging somebody else. I can't hold the phone up, but they're on speaker, and I'm encouraging them that it's going to be okay. I'm encouraging them that whether I live or die, God is still a healer.
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't let it go.
Wow. It's interesting that you say the weak one. You're not weak.
I
In my opinion, that you would be well within your right. You know what I mean? To take a moment, you are literally fighting for your life.
I
Yeah.
couldn't take a moment.
Yeah.
My children needed me.
Hmm.
My husband needed me to be okay. He needed me to make it through. And even though he was there, he was rubbing my bald head and he was massaging my hands with oil and rubbing my feet with anointed oil and rubbing my back. He needed me to be okay. I could not be okay.
Right.
Um, and that was a difficult part because even when I was weak, I still had to be strong.
Yeah.
And I remember about halfway through my chemotherapy, like after the first chemotherapy, I
Hmm.
was like, okay, if this is as bad as it is, because I heard the stories about how bad it was. And I'm just like, this wasn't bad. And if this was how bad it is, like, I'll be okay. I'll make it through.
Right.
And then after about my third chemotherapy, it started to hit me. It was like that. It's like when you're in a fight and somebody hits you in the gut, bam, that one good time and it knocked the wind out of you. That
Right.
it knocked the wind out of me. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Hold up.
Right.
Whoo, hold up. Okay. Like,
Like,
like
let's regroup. Let's think about this.
I had to regroup. I'm like, okay, Jesus, I'm gonna
Yeah.
need you, Lord.
Right.
And after that, that's when I really began to fight because I was in so much pain constantly.
Right.
I wanted to give up. I wanted to die, not from the cancer, but I wanted to die because I wanted to be pain free.
Mm.
And that was a struggle for me because God, I'm like, I know your word. I know you said you're a healer,
Yeah.
but it was like, do you want to be healed? At that point, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be healed. It seems crazy because it's like, again, you have those scriptures. God, you're my healer. You're my provider. You're my everything, and you have the means to heal me. But do I really want to be healed? Do I want to live like this? All I could picture was myself living in that pain for the rest of my life.
Right.
You they quote all the cute scriptures. Joy comes in the morning. But
Right.
when you're in the belly of hell and you can't see joy, it's
Right.
like, really? Shut up. I don't want to hear it.
Right.
And my husband would speak over me. And I remember, God forgive me, I was so angry. I was like, shut up. I don't want to hear any more scriptures.
Right.
But he kept fighting for me. And he kept crying for me. And he kept, I know you're upset and I know you're hurting, but I'm going to keep fighting for you. And I'm going to keep quoting these scriptures. And he would have to pray over me silently because every time he would pray out loud, I would get mad. I'd throw him out of the room, you
Yeah.
know, because I was in such a pain. I was in such despair. I was in such a dark place because for the first time in my life, I felt like God's word would not come to pass
Mm.
because I couldn't see my way out of it.
Wow.
I was in so much pain. I felt like giving up. I didn't want to wait on God. I just wanted to be out of that pain,
Right.
you
So
know?
when you were in that and you asked yourself that question, what was the moment or what was the moment that you realized, yes, I do. I do want to be healed. I do want to continue to fight.
Hmm. I come home from chemotherapy one day. Um, Now, mind you, the regimen for cancer, and everybody's regimen is a little bit different.
Okay.
But my original regimen was going to be 6 treatments over 6 weeks.
Okay.
My very first chemo treatment, I had an allergic reaction to the chemotherapy. It was very bad. So they had to change my regimen. So I had chemotherapy every week for 6 months.
Wow.
6 months. So about 4 months into it, and I'm just done. My mother was coming all the way from Delaware to Atlantic City to pick me up, all to take me all the way to New Brunswick. I was tired. It was 6 hours of chemo, then to go home. And then after that, because of the reaction I had to get the Neulasta shot within 24 to 48 hours. And it wasn't until I actually got that shot that the vomiting and all that stuff began. Because the Neulasta shot was a shot to boost your white blood cells because my count was so low.
Mhm.
So that shot made me violently sick. So I remember coming home from chemotherapy. She dropped me off. My husband was waiting for me because he couldn't stand to go to chemo with me. So we had agreed that my mom would take me and that he would take care of me when I got home.
Okay.
So they got me in a house, sat me on the couch, and I sat there. And I remember sitting back, and I'm like, God, I can't take no more. Just let me die. Just let me die. Let me go, God. Let me come home to you. And my daughter, who was 5.5 at the time, she got the anointing oil, and she said, Mommy, can I rub you? And I said, I'm hurting. I said, yeah, go ahead. And she took the oil and she put it on her hands. And she started rubbing my bald head. And she said, God, I thank you for my mommy's healing. I thank you, God, that you're going to bring my mommy through this. I thank you, God, that my mommy is going to be well. My mommy's going to be able to go to school with me. My mommy's going to be able to walk me to school again. My mommy's going to be able to play with me again. God, I thank you that my mommy's not going to hurt no more, Jesus. And she began to rub my hands. And she said, God, my mommy's hands hurt. Please stop her hands from hurting, Jesus. And I thank you for it in advance. In Jesus' name, amen. And while she's praying, I'm crying. And I thought, God, I can't give up on this girl.
Right.
I can't give up on her. I can't give up on my son. I can't give up on my other daughter. I can't give up on my husband. I can't leave him here with these kids. And I was looking at my daughter, and she had a lopsided ponytail. She had one ponytail here, one here.
Right.
I said, God, my husband gonna have to do her hair. Don't do this, Jesus. I can't go, Lord. I can't go. I can't go. But it was her prayers and her faith that she was just, God, I thank you in advance for healing my mommy. And I'm like, God, I can't give up. She's fighting for me. I can't give up. And I made up my mind that, God, I'm going to fight. And like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even if you don't deliver me, you are well able. And so my mode at that point was even telling my kids, you know what? God is a healer. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I was preparing them. Sometimes healing comes through death, you know. So, but either way, God's going to heal me.
Right.
If I've got to die and I get a new body in heaven, or God's going to fix my body down here, either way, I'm going to be healed. I was preparing them either way, you know. And that's how that second part of my fight started, that I'm going to live and I'm not going to die.
Wow. 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 That's powerful. That's very, very powerful, that basically the Lord answered your prayers through your daughter.
My children. Yep. My children.
Yep. So that's very, very powerful. Wow. Walk us through chemotherapy. We, like I know people who have cancer and they've been through chemotherapy, but I've never, been through that process. So walk us through chemo. Like, what is it? What is it like? What's the process?
Well, when I first went in for orientation, they basically, they did all my vitals. They did a few tests and tried to explain to me what chemotherapy was, and explain to me that it was, chemical medicine that was designed to kill the fast growing cells, which cancer cells are a fast growing cell. So the chemotherapy was designed. So they were just really trying to explain to me what it was to help my understanding. My nurses at the Cancer Institute at Robert Wood Johnson Hospital in New Brunswick, they were amazing. So they bring you in, like I said, they do all the preliminary tests and introduction to what it was. They partner you up with a chemo buddy, so that the two of you are scheduled on the same days, the same time to receive chemotherapy. So it's a source of strength for one another. My partner's name was Joanne, and she was an amazing, amazing lady. And then they, the chemo started. They bring you in, and it's basically a room with it's almost like an ER, an emergency room, and they have the little the seats, and it's separated by like the curtains. I'm trying to just get my mind together. Separated by curtains, but you and your partner in a cubby next to each other, so you can pull back the curtains and see each other. Once they hook you up to the machines and everything. and then you go from there. But I had, again, such a bad reaction to the chemotherapy that before they could even start my chemotherapy, I had about an hour of fluids, prophylactics, and a bunch of other medicines that I had to take, anti-nausea medicines, Lasix, different things that I had to take before they could even start the chemotherapy.
Wow.
Then it was 5 hours of chemotherapy, and then it was another hour of saline, basically to flush my system out. Um, when they started the chemotherapy, I remember thinking as I was watching the chemo go in, they put a port in my chest,
Okay.
a portacath in my chest because I had bad veins, and so that was an issue for me. So I remember them putting the needle, hooking the needle up to my port to begin my chemotherapy, and I'm just watching the chemo going through the, through the little tube, watching it go into my body as if I could stop it. I'm watching it go into my body, like, okay. And I wanted to be very aware of how my body was feeling at the time. And I remember it just felt weird. It didn't necessarily feel good. It didn't feel bad. It just felt weird, almost like if you've ever had surgery and how they give you the medicine to put you to sleep, the general anesthesia, how it gives you like the euphoric feeling, and you kind of feel like the guy in the Matrix, like, ooh.
Because I know sometimes when you get the anesthesia, sometimes it can feel a little colder.
No, it was very, very warm. It was very warm. Very warm. It just felt weird. I don't know if I was just being super sensitive because I know it was something going into my body, but no, it was very, very warm. I remember I could taste it. It tastes like salt. It tastes like salt. So I remember I could taste it. And I remember it had a very distinct smell. And I've never smelled it again. But it had a very, very distinct smell. And I remember even my husband telling me days after chemotherapy, like my body smelled like he could smell the chemo in my pores.
Wow.
Yeah. So, we'd have to, constantly keep our sheets clean and different things like that, because as I would sweat and have hot flashes from the chemotherapy, it would come out of my pores, and it just gave me a smell, But my body was very, very sensitive. I was sensitive to light. I was sensitive to touch. I was very sensitive to everything. Clothes actually sometimes really hurt me. I had to wear very loose things because just the pressure of the clothes. And you really don't know how heavy a 2-pound shirt is until something's wrong with your body. And it was like, it didn't matter what I wore. Everything seemed to just weigh me down. My scalp was very sensitive. My head was very sensitive. I was just very, very, very sensitive to everything. That I remember, food was an issue for me. Now, when you're on the chemotherapy, of course, you get nauseated and you don't want to eat. But I had a heightened sense of smell, and so it's like I could smell beyond the seasoning. Like I could smell the flesh of the food, of the meat, and I couldn't eat it, because of the nausea. I could smell the vegetables, and I could smell the pesticides in the food, and I couldn't eat it. It was very, very difficult to eat. On top of being, nauseated and not being able to hold it down. I remember water. Something as simple as water. I could not drink tap water anymore after that. Still to this day, I still can't drink tap water. I can tell when somebody uses tap water because I could taste the minerals and the salt and the whatever else in the water. I can still taste it to this day. 12 years later, I can still taste it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a trip.
So basically, they're introducing this into your body, and I know it causes hair loss and things of that nature. So did they also have to monitor your other organs? Because I'm thinking, you're getting the chemo for your breast, but what about when they're introducing that into your bloodstream? What about your heart, your kidneys, and things of that nature?
they monitored constantly, frequently. In fact, every week when I went for chemo, I had to have blood work first. So
Okay.
that first hour while they were giving me the saline and the prophylactics and different things, they took my blood first and ran my blood. They did my blood count. They checked my kidney function. They often did ultrasounds and different things to make sure my heart was good. They did a EKG often. I mean, in fact, if not every week, they did an EKG just to make sure my heart was nice and strong. But absolutely, they monitored the other organs to make sure that everything was going to be okay, because heart damage is one of the major side effects of chemotherapy. And also, kidney function, because it's filtering out those powerful drugs that's going into your system. And then I had to drink a lot of fluids when I went home. They said, even if you don't eat, you must drink. And again, being nauseated, that was a problem for me. So they would give me those extra fluids because they knew I really couldn't drink.
So going back to earlier, you were saying that your mom did a lot of research. So from what I understand, the cancer that you had is extremely rare. What's the name of the cancer?
It's called lipid-rich breast carcinoma. And from the research that she found, I was only the 51st person to ever have it since it was discovered in 1967. It
In the
affected
United States or
worldwide.
wow.
Worldwide. It was very rare. It's very aggressive. Over half the people were already dead by the time they identified it. That's how fast growing the cancer was. In fact, my doctor had told me if I had waited another 6 months, there would have been nothing they could have done for me. When I had my second lumpectomy, they also took out my lymph nodes at the time to prevent the spread of the cancer to the other organs and the other systems in my body. And thank God my lymph nodes were unaffected. So we didn't have to worry about it going anywhere else. We just had to deal with the breast. But yeah, it was very, very rare. One cat, one dog, a man even had it, and a child. But other than that, the other affected people were women. And like I said, over half of them were already dead by the time they found it.
Wow.
It was serious.
Wow. So the docs, when they finally went in to do the biopsy, that's when they discovered it, or was it through your mom's research that she was able to pinpoint that's what it was, the rare cancer?
No, actually, again, they found it backwards. We did the lumpectomy first, then they sent it to be tested, my slides to be tested. Then they found out it was cancer. We did the second lumpectomy. And so they told us, the doctor told us after the first lumpectomy, when we came back in, they told us what type it was, but he had no research for it. And so before I had the second lumpectomy, my mom was like, we're going to go get a second opinion, because my local doctor down in Atlantic City, again, he was the one that was scared. He was frightened. So my mother found the Cancer Institute of New Jersey in New Brunswick, and she took me there for the second opinion. And they basically looked over the research. My slides had been sent to Sloan Kettering and a few of the other major cancer hospitals, but I could not go to them because of the type of insurance I had. I had to stay within the state of New Jersey. So my insurance was an issue also. But thank God for the Cancer Institute. They had a genetic oncologist. It turns out that I have the BRCA gene, which is a cancer gene, which tells you if you have a predisposition to breast cancer and cervical and uterine cancer. So BRCA1, the BRCA1 gene tells you if you have a predisposition to breast cancer. BRCA2 tells you if you have a predisposition to cervical, uterine, and ovarian cancer. Ironically, I tested positive for BRCA2, but I had breast cancer. So they said I had an 85% chance of getting cervical, uterine, or ovarian cancer within 5 to 10 years of my cancer diagnosis.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's that's a lot.
it was a lot to process. And again, there was so little research out there. Again, my mother, she was on it, boy. She was searching every database, every web page, every doctor. She was calling this one and that one. She was determined to get an answer.
Right.
And again, she found the majority of the research, and she's the one that really said how limited the research was.
Wow. So the test that they did, of course, you had that test. Is that something that you have to request? Like I said, I know your situation is different because, you were going through being diagnosed.
but the test to find out if you said breaker,
BRCA.
BRCA.
Mhm.
Is that a test that should be on the general person's radar so that they're aware of what they're predisposed to, or?
Here's the general rule of thumb when it comes to that. The BRCA gene, again, tells you if you have a predisposition to cancer. Cancer ran in my family on both sides, my father's side and my biological mother's side of the family. And so if you have a history of cancer in your family, you should get that test. A lot of insurances will not cover it if there's not a reason to cover it. I kind of, again, got in backwards because they found the cancer and then they did the test.
Right.
So they had to do it at that point. But there's no harm in finding out. Again, if you suspect that cancer runs in your family, there's no harm in getting a test. You know, your insurance may fight you. You have to show reasonable cause, and you and your physician will have to work that out as to whether the physician thinks that there's a reasonable cause for you to get it. And that's how you can kind of work with the insurance, fight against the insurance. But yeah, if you have a family history of it, you should get the test. A lot of people don't want to know, but what you don't know can kill you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is not bliss.
Right.
And actually, what my twin sister, I have a twin sister. We are fraternal. She also had the test done, and she is not BRCA positive. Just me.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
just me.
I wonder how that works. You know.
Well, the thing is with fraternal twins, it's like having two separate babies at the same time. If you were identical, where you shared one egg and it's
Okay.
split into two babies, then you share almost equivalent DNA. But with she and I, my mother basically had two eggs released at the same time during her ovulation, and so it was two separate babies, and so that's how you get fraternal twins. We're just born at the same time, but we're two separate children.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I got you. Okay.
yeah.
All right. How did this experience change you as to how you maintain your personal your medical, not just for you but for your husband, for your children? How has that changed you and turned you into a medical advocate now?
Oh, as I was saying at the church, um, when I went to the doctor and I told them there was something wrong,
Mhm.
um, and they kept telling me, no, there's nothing wrong. And I'm like, my breast is hurting, and they're sending me home. You know, you're fine, you're fine. And I would tell them, that breast cancer ran in my family, that I think I should get checked out. And I remember the doctor saying, oh, you're only 25. You can't possibly have breast cancer. You're way too young for that. It's impossible, is what he said. It's impossible. You're way too young. And I said, okay. And I went home. But after this experience, it has really made me fight for myself, and the Lord fight for me.
Mhm.
If I had not listened to the unction of the Holy Spirit to tell me there was something just not right in my body, I would not have pressed. And that made me even more vigilant now when it comes to my health, my children's health. I am that annoying patient that you are going to hear me. And
Mhm.
if you won't hear me, somebody else will. And I tell them, no disrespect, but this is my life.
Right.
I've got one life to live. And I can't afford for your complacency and for you to be nonchalant, and I pay the price because it almost happens. I tell them no disrespect, to the doctor, tell them straight up, no disrespect, but I have to fight for me. So if you can't get on the same page with me, then I have to find another doctor. And I have changed doctors because one doctor she act like I was being annoying, like I was getting on her nerves because I kept coming in complaining. In fact, she was a doctor before I went to the doctor that found the cancer.
Right.
Yeah.
I was
And
going
so,
to ask, like, what was your relationship with that doctor who, because she was the one who went out because her own mother ended up being diagnosed with cancer, right? Was that?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Do you harbor any, I don't want to say ill feelings towards her, but do you feel some type of way that she did not take you seriously, basically didn't do her job by listening to you?
I don't harbor any ill will, but at the same time, it has made me more passionate.
Mm-hmm.
about my care and more passionate to fight for other people, because it's obvious that there is such a disparity in the healthcare in this country between those with state insurance and those with other insurance and those without insurance or insurance altogether. There is such a disparity in the level of healthcare you receive because of issues like gender and the color of your skin.
Right.
All those those disparities create an unbalanced system, you
Mm,
know. And if you are on the losing end, or if you are the underdog, then you have to cry loud and spare not, and people will try to make you feel like, oh, you're just being annoying, oh, you're just being loud, oh, you're just a troublemaker. They tried to make me feel like I was a troublemaker, and I'm like, I'm trying to live, you
right.
know but it's made me more vigilant in fighting for others. And I'll tell anybody. My husband tells me, you will talk to a stranger. Yes, I will. Because if
Right.
I can tell one person to prevent them from going through what I went through, then my suffering wasn't in vain. And that's how I kind of look at it. We're to tell those around us so that they can get the help for themselves. So I've had other friends that have been diagnosed, so they were scared to go to the doctors. And I'm like, I'm coming with you. Don't worry about it. And when I come, I have a whole sheet of questions, because
Right.
when you're going through that and you have that kind of diagnosis, you're not clearly thinking for yourself. So I have gone to the doctors with a lot of my friends, and I will ask the doctors, are like, excuse me, you're not the patient. No, 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 ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm the advocate. I'm the friend. So
Right.
you can answer our questions. And I've had doctors try to put me out because I was asking too many questions. No, listen, sir, ma'am, you get paid to treat me. You
Right.
get paid to make sure, and paid very well, might I add, to make sure that you're doing your job. And if you can't answer these basic questions, these are questions I got off the internet.
Right. Right.
What do I need to know when I'm facing cancer? What do I need to know when I'm facing diabetes? What do I need to know when I'm facing this, that, and the third? So it's made me more vigilant to fight for other people. So you know what? I thank God for the experience, because when you don't know what you don't know, you don't know how much you don't know.
Right.
It's just how it is.
Yeah. And that is true. I've heard different people say that when you go to the doctor and they'll say, "Oh, do you have any questions?" And you're like, "No." But then you leave the office and it's like you do have questions. You
Yeah.
do have concerns about different things, or because even like myself, there are certain things where, I may feel, pain in my knee or little things like that. And then you just kind of, shrug it off and you move
Let's get
on.
off here.
And I think about that sometimes, and I'm like you said, sometimes it's something small, but I really need to pay attention, especially as I get older and having family history of different diseases and things of that nature. I'm like, I probably need to be a little bit more diligent and follow up on things a little bit more. With my mom, I feel like I'm more diligent with her. Like I'm you in the room with my mom. I got my notes out.
Yes,
On September
yes,
3rd, you
yes,
said you were
yes,
going to test such
yes,
and such, and
yes,
what was the result? I'm
yes.
definitely that for her. But when it comes to me, I'm like, I'll check it out next month or something like
Yeah.
that. So,
And
yeah,
and that's why it's important to surround yourself with people who can fight for you when you can't fight for yourself.
right,
And even with doctors and insurance and different things like that, it's become, gone are the days of personal touch.
right,
We're in this society where everything is fast, instant, 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 get you in, get you out. Doctors' offices have become a factory. It's a factory. It's a sick factory. They bring you in, they look at you for five. You've got 15 to 20 minutes tops with that doctor. You've got to get out everything you're thinking, before they're on to the next patient. I don't like doctors like that. No, if you rush me, no, we've got a problem. I'm going to get a new doctor, because don't rush me. I need to feel like you care about me. I'm not just a number. I'm not a diagnosis. I'm not a chart. I'm a person. I'm flesh and blood. I
yeah,
cry. I bleed. I feel.
yeah,
So if you can't make me feel like you care for me, then guess what? I don't care about lining your pockets with my insurance money,
right,
that's paying your deductibles, your premiums, and everything else. No, I've got people that I have to live for. I've got people that I have to touch. I've got children that I've got to raise. I've got things that I have to do. I don't have time for people who don't have time for me.
right. All right. I know that's right.
And I'm learning it's okay to care about me. I'm learning it's okay to not be okay with people treating me like a second class citizen. I'm learning that it's okay to not be okay with people treating me like a diagnosis. I'm a person.
Wow.
That's good. That's good stuff. That's absolutely right. And they say we only get one life, we only get one body.
Yep.
So we
Yep.
definitely have to take care of it. We got to do better.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think even after a diagnosis like that, I have to say, like I was saying before, it was such a whirlwind when the diagnosis happened. So many thoughts, so many things I didn't know. I was trying to get educated on something that the only thing I heard about cancer is that, oh, such and such died from cancer. That one died. That's really all I knew about it. So trying to come to terms with the fact that I have something that could potentially take my life,
Right.
and the trying of my faith. And do I believe God? Can I believe God? Will I believe God? How do I be strong for everybody in my life? And
Wow.
the myriad of things, it was like it happened and then it was done. And then after the chemo, after the it was done, chemo was done, I had my breast reconstruction.
Mhm.
I just got to sit for a little while. And it was like, okay, I don't have to go to the doctors every week. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. Then I decided to just breathe.
Mhm.
And I was so excited that I could just breathe and take a minute to figure out what was going on. I actually became complacent in my care because I was supposed to be on a diet where I was not eating white sugar. I was not eating white flour. I was not eating starch. I was not eating junk food. I was not eating any of those things. I didn't do any of that stuff. I went right back to eating how I used to eat. I went right back to doing the things that I used to do. My doctors did stress the importance of exercising and diet, but I didn't want to hear all that. I went right back to doing me,
Right.
because I was so happy not to be under all those constraints and people not always. I was tired of being treated like a victim. I was
Right.
tired of being treated like cancer. It's like, no, I have cancer. Cancer doesn't have me, and I really took for granted how my health had been restored. And so things got worse for me because I had developed some things after that that was it was um, I had developed fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis as a result of the bad reaction that I had to the chemotherapy. And I gained so much weight and just I didn't realize that my body was not going to quite function the same. I also felt that because I was so young, I would just bounce back. And that's one of the misconceptions, even young people face
Right.
that when you have a serious diagnosis, your life is never the same. You might feel like you've regained a modicum of strength and modicum of health, but you really have to heed those doctors' warnings, because if you don't, things are going to get worse. And things got worse for me. And
Right.
so I spent the next 10 years ill, sick. I gained a lot of weight. Again, I had mobility issues. It got to the point where I couldn't walk. I was walking with a walker. My husband had to literally carry me to the bathroom because I couldn't walk. My legs would give out. I would fall down the stairs. There'd be days where I couldn't get out of bed at all because I was in so much pain. My body I couldn't move. I
Right.
wanted to, but I just couldn't because I didn't follow the plan. And so I made things worse on myself. And, God is a redeeming God. And even when we do bring things on ourselves, He does give us the opportunity to be redeemed. And so I found some more doctors, and I finally began to listen to the doctors. And I had a few more surgeries because I was breaking too positive. I did eventually have to have a full hysterectomy. We did it preventatively to make sure that I did not get ovarian, cervical, or uterine cancer. There was some things that was going on after my menstruation cycle had come back, because it stops during chemotherapy. So after it had come back after chemotherapy, it came back with a vengeance. And so there were some signs that some things weren't quite right. And so I'm just like, I'm not doing this again. And so preventatively, we did the full hysterectomy. I was 30 at that time, so I was 26 when I had cancer, my original breast cancer diagnosis, and 30 or 31 when I had my hysterectomy. And then that in and of itself brought a change in my body, another change that I was unexpected. And I wasn't ready for the mental fight. So I felt like the spiritual fight I dealt with during the cancer, but after came the mental fight. And my biggest fight I remember is I had a bilateral mastectomy, so they replaced both of my breasts.
Mhm.
Even though the left breast was affected with the cancer, we did the right, simply because of the type of cancer. Again, we did it preventatively,
Mhm.
because I just didn't want to go through that again. And I remember feeling very, very vulnerable. I
Mhm.
remember feeling ugly. I remember no matter how much my husband told me how beautiful I was, and I remember feeling dirty.
Mhm.
Um, in this society, um, we place so much emphasis on a woman's breasts, and that's what makes you a woman, and that's what makes you voluptuous, and that's what makes you beautiful. And when men look at you, it's like they're not looking from the neck up, they're looking from the chest down.
Mhm.
This is what you have. So like your breast was like the gift wrap, on the present, and I felt robbed of that. I had my womanhood stolen from me because I didn't choose to have cancer,
Right.
and I felt victimized all over again.
Mhm.
Um, and I felt used and abused, and like I said, even though my husband told me I was beautiful, even though he loved me, he kissed me, it was like when he would embrace me, I would shy away. And when we would have those intimate moments, I would never get fully undressed because I was so ashamed. I loved my husband so much, and I felt like I was broken.
Wow.
And a lot of women suffer in silence especially from cancer, and you feel mutilated, and you feel broken. And that was really, really tough for me. And
Mhm.
then after I had the hysterectomy, another part of me was taken from me because I didn't choose it. I had to do it to save my life.
Right.
And so once again, I'm under the knife again for something that I didn't choose, something that I didn't want. I've got these breast implants that I don't like. They hurt, frankly. And I just don't like them. I never would have considered implants, you
Right.
know? And every day when I looked in the mirror, it was a reminder of how imperfect I was, and I was extremely depressed, and I didn't realize that one of the side effects of chemotherapy was depression.
I heard that
And I
before.
did eventually have to go seek psychiatric care.
Okay.
Um, and that was a struggle for me because in the Black community, you don't go to a psychiatrist. It is not okay to be mentally ill. They would rather you almost. People would accept it better if you told them that you were on illicit drugs, that you were on crack cocaine, that you were smoking heroin, that you were popping pills, that you
Isn't
were
that crazy?
shooting
That's
up.
crazy.
If I tell somebody I'm on an antidepressant, it's like, what's wrong with you? But if I'm on heroin, that's okay, you know, and that in and of itself was a struggle because it took me a long time to go to the psychiatrist.
What was your breaking point? When, I shouldn't say breaking point, but when was that moment when you decided, you know what? I need something more. I need to go see someone. To what
Uh,
point?
I remember my husband and I were having a heated discussion.
Okay.
We gonna leave that
We're
there.
gonna yeah, yeah, we'll leave it at that.
And I had been feeling very anxious, very upset, and just overall just anxious, just all over the place, just.
Yeah.
Um, and he left in the middle of our discussion because he doesn't like to fight. I
Mm.
do, I do. And so he walked out of the house, and
Wow.
I remember taking all of my dishes, and I threw dishes all over the house. And I seriously, at that moment, thought about killing myself.
Wow.
I thought about just taking my life. I didn't want to live anymore. Because even after the cancer, the pain didn't go away. I was still constantly in pain all day, every day. My kids are a little bit older now, so not only can I not walk, I can't go to the bathroom by myself. I literally can't wipe my own behind. My kids have to come and feed me like the thing in the basement because we had stairs. And so
Mhm.
we had to move our bedroom to the basement because I couldn't walk up the stairs. And so I felt like the thing under the stairs, you know. So they had to literally come and feed me because there were days where I couldn't walk up and down the stairs because of my mobility.
Mhm.
I would go to sleep in pain. I would wake up in pain. I was taking pain pills, and the medicine that they had given me would make me sleep for 4 or 5 hours at a time. And I would have to take it every 6 to 8 hours. I felt like all I was doing was sleeping. My husband is a musician.
Mhm.
And so he would go, and that's his occupation as well as his anointing.
Mhm.
So he would go, you know, and play at these services because that was how he made money to support our family. And so um, he would leave and the kids would be there with me. Of course they were home, but I would feel so alone, you know. And of course he couldn't stay there with me all day every day. He just couldn't. He had to work,
Right.
you know. And no matter again how much he told me he loved me, I still felt alone. I felt dirty. I felt broken. And I don't remember what we were even fighting about. But again, I was antsy. All this stuff was in my mind, and I'm tired of hurting. I truly understood what it meant to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I just wanted it all to end. I
Mhm.
wanted it all to end. And he left, he took the kids. I think he had a service to play for or something. And he knew I was like not right. So,
Yeah.
because I was trying to pick a fight with him because I was hurting. And he took the kids and he left. And just remember, I was so mad. I just saw the dish and I took it and I smashed it and it felt amazing. And when I had no more dishes to break, I went into the utensils drawer and I threw everything all over the house. I threw everything everywhere. I flipped over the table. I was so mad. And I don't really know what I was mad for. And I remember when I got to the utensil drawer again and I looked at the knives and I was like, yeah, I could just end this right now and I could bleed out and be dead before he gets home and I wouldn't have to be in pain no more. And a hush went over me and I felt the Spirit of God saying, no, don't do it. I love you. I need you. And I just remember falling to the floor and crying and saying, God, I don't want to hurt. And if this is what my life has to be like for the rest of my life, to let me die. I was Even though I had the thoughts of committing suicide, I was scared because I knew if I committed suicide, I was going to go to hell. But I was like, God, please. It was almost better than
Mhm.
being in pain at that moment. And that's when God really, really spoke to me and said, don't do it. I love you. I love you. And I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And when my husband came home, I had fallen asleep. And when my husband came home, um, I don't even know when he came home. I woke up the next morning and I got up and everything was clean. And I
Mhm.
was waiting for him to be mad. I was waiting for him to say, why in the world did you break the dishes? And da, 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 da. He said nothing. He woke me up. He had breakfast for me. And I ate the breakfast and I didn't say anything because I'm like, oh, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like I knew I messed up. I was like, oh. And I ate the breakfast and he sat on the bed. And I just immediately, I was like, I'm sorry about the dishes. He was like, shh. He said, babe, I love you, but you need some help. I think you need to go to the doctor. I think you need to go see a psychiatrist.
Mhm.
And it resonated with me. I didn't fight him. I didn't fight him. I said, okay, I'm going to go. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. And I promise, he said, I don't ever want the kids to see what they saw last night. And I was like, God, I'm sorry. My babies had to see that. And he
Mhm.
was like, get some help, not just for you, but for the kids. And really, once again, my kids. I did it for my kids. I
Yeah.
didn't realize I did it for me, but I did it for my kids, you know. And that was tough.
Mhm.
That was tough. And after, months of therapy antidepressants, you know, and then my faith, then my spiritual family, you know, um, surrounded me even more. And then my husband praying for me and really leading the charge and covering me in prayer, and just amazing.
So, as a Christian, I know I've had previous conversations about this because I agree. For whatever reason, when you're African American, therapy is like, the forbidden thing. Like you said, you can, kill somebody, you can,
Mm-hmm.
drugs, rob, steal, and heal. And for somehow, some way, your family will support you and forgive you. But then you start talking about going to therapy, and it's like, we don't do
Yeah,
therapy, right? We just need Jesus.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We just need Jesus.
Yeah.
So at any point, was there a struggle within you or something in you that said, I don't need counseling. I pray every day. I have faith. I have strong faith. Was there ever a conflict between that decision?
That was the conflict up until me almost killing myself. That was the conflict, because I'm like, people would say to you, oh, because I would say to different ones, I think I need to go to the psychiatrist. I think I need to go to the doctor. If you go to the doctor, that means you're not trusting God. Do you trust God? Do you believe God? God is your healer. He's your way maker. He said, seek him and you shall find him. So you need to pray more. You need to seek God more. You need to read your word of God more. You don't believe him. If you do this and you do that, you don't believe him. Where is your faith, daughter? Where is your faith?
Right.
And that is the most ignorant foolishness
Thank
ever
you.
heard.
It's problematic. Yes.
That
It's
is the most
problematic.
ignorant foolishness. Yes, the church and the house of God is a hospital for your soul. But if you are bleeding out, do
Yeah.
you heal yourself and then go to the ER and say, oh, I'm good. No, you go to the hospital and you let them tend to your wounds, your physical wounds. And the church is a hospital to tend to your spiritual wounds. So we need to stop as Christians. Let me say, we as a society, we need to stop peddling those lies, because it is a lie from the pit of hell to tell people that all they need is Jesus.
Yes.
We are tripart being. We are a spirit man,
Yes.
that have a soul, and we live in a body. So we need tripart care.
Mm-hmm.
God, once we receive Jesus, we have salvation. That takes care of our soul. Our spirit man takes care of our spirit man. But we need to take care of our body, and we need to take care of our mind, our soul, our mind, our will, our emotions. We need to take care of it.
Yeah.
And so, the chemotherapy took care of the cancer, the physical part of me, but nothing was taking care of my soul.
Right.
And I almost lost my life because I fed into that lie that I did not need to go to the psychiatrist. I fed into those societal lies and those generational curses to tell you that with Black people we don't do that. No, Black people, we need to do that.
I was going to say, we the main ones who need it.
Exactly.
All of the stuff we have been through and all of the burdens that we've carried, I feel like we need to be number one. Matter of fact, it needs to definitely built into the health system. We should go for free. We shouldn't even have to pay for it.
Exactly, because through therapy you learn to process those things that you've gone through. You learn to just like your body has a physical growth and development, and you go to school and you learn about health and how your body physically develops and how to take care of your physical body and your hygiene. Therapy is hygiene for your soul. Mm-hmm. Therapy is hygiene for your spirit man, that you learn your spiritual development and your mental development, how your mind develops and how you can take care of your mind and how you can have self-care. We need that. Yes. And especially as women, because we're so busy taking care of everybody else, we don't take care of us. Mm-hmm. And so when the stuff hits the fan, we're lost. We don't know how to take care of ourselves. We don't know how to sit back and let somebody wait on us because we're so busy being strong that we're weak. We're serving people from a broken dish. We're like a pitcher with shotgun holes in it, and we're trying to pour juice, pour stuff in, and we're empty. We're bleeding at the seam. And people, if you really love somebody, you would tell them, go see a psychiatrist. In fact, you will go with them to the psychiatrist. You know, you would go with them. I could have saved years of pain and anguish. It would have saved me, you
Yeah.
know, had I just gone to the psychiatrist immediately, even during chemotherapy. But I was so busy putting on the front. Now part of my screening did include a psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so busy putting on the front because guess what? I gotta be strong. I am woman. Hear me roar. You can't keep a black woman down. Oh
Right.
no. You know, but I was so busy being strong
Yes.
that I almost lost everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Well, I appreciate you so much for being transparent, and I'm happy that this conversation got to the point where we could address that because I am 100% with you, and I believe that, and I just don't know how do we, change that mindset, because I just, whenever I read about, stories of postpartum depression, women going through that, or just women just being overwhelmed, even recently in the news where the young lady has several children, and one of her children with special needs, and she was overwhelmed, and she took the child to the emergency, was it the hospital? I think it was, she took him to the emergency center or something like that, and left him, and she was arrested because they
Wow.
said she abandoned the child or whatever. And I'm like, we need, and people were like, well, that's her child, how could she leave him? But I'm like, in my opinion, she showed strength in that she recognized her breaking point, because her story could be totally different. She could be in jail for a
Exactly.
whole other reason right now, whole other
Exactly.
reason. So
Exactly. Exactly. There was no shame in saying I need help. There was no shame in saying I need medication. There is no shame in saying that I don't have all the answers. Yes, we trust God, and yes, we believe God. We believe His word. But the Bible also does say that there is wisdom in the abundance of wise counsel. Wisdom.
yeah.
Wisdom. So we need to get counsel from people that don't look like us.
Mhm.
We need to get counsel from people outside of our neighborhood. Because guess what? If the blind is leading the blind, we both falling in the ditch. So if you're sick and I'm sick, how you gonna heal me?
Right.
If I have mental issues and you have mental issues, then how are you going to heal me? We need to get some help as a people. Get some help.
I agree. Um, was there any point that you and your husband got counseling together, or has he seeking counseling separately, or the fact that you were getting your healing was enough healing was able to help heal him as well?
No, we needed counseling separately and together,
Wow.
because there was issues that he was dealing with. His mother was sick when he was a kid, all of his childhood. So when I got sick, that triggered something in him.
Wow.
It triggered something in him. So it was like, I might be losing my wife. What am I going to do with these kids? He's like, I got 3 kids and I have to take care of it. It triggered something in him. So yes, we had to get counseling together, and he also had to get it separately because he had to go get some talk from another man, who because a woman can't raise a man. So he had to talk to someone who had been there, talk to other brothers who could lift him up and encourage him. Yes, the women rallied around me, but he needed some men to rally around him.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was important.
Absolutely. Wow. Powerful. Good stuff. Good stuff. Like I said, I appreciate you so much for being transparent. I really honestly do. So you're 12 years, right? 12
Woohoo.
years, yes.
My little dance.
Yes. So what does your medical care look like now? Do you still have to go back every so often to get scanned? Just, I know you had the hysterectomy, but is there still concern that the cancer could come back in other areas?
So basically, I had to go back for the first 3 years. I had to go back every 6 months for scans, and I did that. And then at the 3 year mark, I went back every year until my 5 year mark. And after 5 years, I didn't have to go back anymore, but I went for an additional 3 years just to make sure. My doctor was like, you don't have to come, right? I'm like, that's okay. I'm here. Check me out. I want to see how you do. Exactly. So, but no, after the 8 year mark, they weren't concerned that I would get it again. Again, I had the bilateral mastectomy, so there was no breast tissue left for
Mhm.
me to get cancer in. And so basically, they said at this point, I only come back if I find something wrong. So if I see something wrong or feel something wrong, then I'm going back and checking, with my primary care physician, and then also with the oncologist. Yeah, so I do have those checkups, but again, it's with my primary care, and if they deem, then I'll go to the oncologist. But yeah, only if I feel something wrong.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Are there any final thoughts, or is there any tips or encouragement or anything that you want to share with my gummies?
Well, Gummies, I will say that um, through everything that you may be going through, everything you will go through, trust God. He is your source for everything. He has already made a way for us to be healed. That comes sometimes in the form of medication. It comes in the form of counseling. It comes from listening to the Holy Spirit. If you feel like there's something not right in your body, you be persistent. And if you don't have the strength to be persistent, you go get that friend like me to be persistent for you, because you only have one life to live. You are here for a purpose, and until your purpose is done, it's not time to leave. So live on, Gummies, live on in health and wellness.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So there, I have two more questions for you that I always like to ask my guests. The first one is, if money and time were limitless, what would you do?
Money and time were limitless. You know what? I would spend, because of this ordeal, I would spend the rest of my life going around educating people on cancer treatment, on mental health awareness, and just making sure that people were okay. I would love people. I would give people hugs. I'm a hugger. I'm a touchy-feely hugger. So when people, meet me, I'm hugging them. I'm like, do you know that person? No, I just met them, but I'm hugging them. I would spend the rest of my life hugging, loving, and educating people.
Awesome, awesome. And the last question is, if someone were to ask about Pastor Shanda Berry, what would you want them to say about you?
I would want them to say that, first and foremost, I am a child of God. Um, and I would want them to say that I'm a person that believes that nothing I went through was for myself. It was for somebody else. So I would want them to know that I had a big mouth, okay? Because I want them to know that just like God did it for me, He'll do it for you. So I'm a child of God, and I'm an example of what God can and will do.
Amen. Amen. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Like I said, I really do. I know I keep saying that, and I say that all the time, but I really am humble because, like I said, it's a very small YouTube channel, and no, like, you don't have to come and talk to me. I know that there are probably 1,000 other things that you could be doing with your time right now. So I just humbled and very, very appreciative that you thought it not robbery to come and chat with me and my gummies. So if I keep saying it, it's heartfelt. I really do appreciate you.
I'm the honored one. I'm the honored one that you would even want to hear my voice. I'm the honored one that I'm still here for people to hear my voice. So it is an honor and it's a privilege for me. So thank you. Whether it's one person or 5,000 people or 5 million people, every life is important. Every woman is important. Every breast is important. Every issue is important. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, gummies. I know this is a long video, but I just pray that one thing, if you take away one thing from this video, I would be forever grateful, because this is life-saving information. And I would just say that we definitely need to be advocates for ourselves, advocates for our family members and our loved ones, because healthcare is changing and it's not necessarily for the best in our favor. So we definitely need to take our health seriously. I appreciate you watching. Have a great day on purpose.